It is a huge honor today to be podcast interviewing a local rock star legend, idol of mine, Dr. Maryam. You have been an outstanding dentist, clinician. You own a couple of offices. Is it two? Five offices. Unbelievable. You're just a leader. You know, Phoenix dental market is huge. There's 6,000 dentists in Arizona. 3,800 of them are in the valley. You've been a leader, and I was so glad for you to come because it's tough when you have a dental magazine, and if every month we get a couple of feet of submitted material, and it's all submitted by males. And then you go into the dental schools, and it's half females. And then I look at my podcast interviews, and I got 6-month waiting list of males to be interviewed. And I'm always looking for women role models and leaders. And thank you so much for.
I'm honored to be here.
Oh, the honor.
I'm honored to get the call. I'm honored to sit at your dining room table today. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
And this is I've had this house for 2005, and right now this is all the food we've ever cooked. When you're a bachelor at the dining room table, I'm still not sure why I even had this room. I should probably take it out and put it in a jacuzzi, but at least now we have a function for it, podcast interviewing. So I hate to start with this question, but I have to. Is it I'm sad when I go into dental schools. I see the class half females, and I say to them, I said, raise your hand if you think dentistry is just dentistry, or raise your hand if you think it's a male profession. And all the hands go up that it's male.
Yeah.
And I heard a girl say this one time, and I almost made me cry. She's embarrassed to go to her study club, the local study club with a dozen dentists, because she's the only girl.
Right.
And is it a male profession, or is it?
It is somewhat. It is somewhat. Unfortunately, it's not that we're uninvited to the party and they're leaving us out the door, but it's because we choose to have families and we have to give and take. So we do bear the children. So we go through the pregnancy, we take time off, we go in, we go out. It just becomes difficult after dental school for us to get our career jump-started when we have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. It's just historically been difficult for us.
And I saw one deal that it was just so sad. This woman in my backyard had an amazing dental practice. I mean, it was $1 million practice, and her husband had some job, and I think he was making, 40 or 50, and he got a promotion to San Diego, to Seattle or Washington, and he took the promotion. Yeah. So for him, he's just going to move and take a new job. She's got to sell a practice with all that brand recognition. Right. And I told her, I said, did you tell him he's absolutely insane? You make 4, 5, 6 times more money. And she goes, I know, but it basically comes down to, do I want to divorce my husband and break up the family, or follow his stupid ego?
Right.
I mean, how could that man not see that?
I was, I'm finishing up my MBA. I'm finishing in 2 weeks, actually, from Thunderbird. Thank you. Thank you.
You're even higher role model now in my eyes.
Well, I mean, it was necessary. It was just one thing that I really wanted to do, and it was just the time to do it. But anyways, I'm getting it from Thunderbird, the School of Global
International School of Management, which I went to ASU because to go to Thunderbird, you had to speak an international language.
Right.
And the only D I ever made in my life was in Spanish.
Right.
And the teacher told my mother, San Martin told my mother that I was linguistically retarded.
No!
And then my piano teacher fired me at the end of the year, said Howard couldn't carry a tune in a lunch bell.
Downhill from
so you had to speak a foreign language.
Right. Like, I'm Persian, so obviously I speak that fluently.
Farsi.
Yeah. I had that edge. Just lucky. But anyways, back to the subject matter. We were just on a trip. So in Thunderbird, we take international trips to see global business environments. And we were just in Vietnam meeting with one of the CFOs of Intel. And she's actually a woman. And she's from America. She's an American woman. And she's just incredibly smart and articulate and amazing. And we asked her this question: how is it being a woman in Vietnam in this kind of position? What did you have to do? And she said, it's interesting. In the United States, when this position came on, I had to basically raise my hand, throw my resume on everyone's table, jump up and down to get recognized for the position, because it's not a traditional woman's position. Traditionally, women don't get shipped overseas and take such a high-level position. They have their husbands and they have their families. And she said, I had to leave my husband. They not divorce, but leave my husband in the United States because this is what I wanted. This is what I've worked for all my life. So she left her husband, and she has a 3-year assignment in Vietnam. And
so did she divorce, or she just left him in America?
She left him in America, and she goes back and forth, and he goes back and forth as much as she can. But she chose, and she said this, I chose to not have children because it was either my career or my children. And at that point, I couldn't choose not to take this assignment because I had given up so much already in what in my path. So
and the second most powerful person in America is the chairman of the Federal Reserve after the president.
Yeah.
And she is a woman. She's the first woman too. If you speak Persian, that is one of the it's probably my number one bucket list country that I have not lectured. I've lectured in 50 countries. We should go to Tehran.
We can.
And do a lecture.
We can.
The
market's opening up.
I know.
It's going to be a hot area. You've been to Dubai, right? You've lectured in Dubai, yeah? Yeah, we were just there, actually, again, with Thunderbird, and we did a lot of...
Well, if you ever want to have a dental town, turn them on a dental town. I love to. That'd be fun.
I'll get a hold of my contacts.
So you're getting an MBA from probably one of the most prestigious MBA schools there is, Thunderbird School of Management.
Thank you.
I want to... How do you think the dental profession is serving? I mean, it used to be a cottage industry where everybody was by themselves.
Absolutely.
Now we've seen DSOs, dental services organizations, go from, now taking, upwards of 20% of the market. A lot of people think in the next 10 to 15 years, it'll take half the market. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, unfortunately, the private practice mom and pop model is a dying breed. It's just difficult to compete. And it's difficult because you're competing against a corporation where there's infrastructure, where there are CEOs and CFOs and marketing specialists, and everybody is specialized in their field, just like we are specialized in our field. We are darn good dentists, but we never got a specialized marketing degree and did marketing for the last 20 years. I've been a dentist for 15 years. I'm really good at dentistry. I still practice full time. If I would have done marketing for 15 years, I would have been really good at marketing. So that's our competition. That's what we're competing against. And it's interesting that the private practitioners think this is a death threat for us, and we get mad about it and we don't agree with it. But at some point, we're going to realize that this is the future, and we're going to get on board.
So you have 5 offices. Are they all under a same brand, or
they are all under Westwind, and we will grow. And I would like to see us form a community with our local dentists and become almost our own group practice, not necessarily, managed by my management team. I mean, that's possible if that's what's needed, or marketed by my marketing team. And again, that's possible. But I would like us to form our own community to get the economies of scale. Because in the future, who's going to win are the dentists that are the most cost efficient, not the most price efficient. Has nothing to do with price, has to do with your COGS, your cost. Your cost structure has to be efficient. So that's going to be our future. Bring your costs down so you can be competitive in the marketplace. We can only do that if we're scaled.
So I want to throw out devil's advocate to you. So many consultants see that, you go into any market in America, it could be in Sioux Falls, and a solo practicing dentist starts a group. And so now in this one city, instead of one office, they got one in north, south, east, west. Maybe by 10 years later, they have a dozen, an hour drive each way. Mm-hmm. And so that gives you scales of economy so that you can have a specialized marketing chief financial officer, a marketing specialist, trainers, systems, and that's really, really efficient. So that layer of management running a dozen group practices is just incredibly efficient and makes it harder to compete against whatever. But then when you roll a lot of these different cities up to the next level of management, to now a headquarters who might be taking, 15% off the top, that they don't really see what the second layer of management does on a national level that the local layer management does. So a lot of people think the sweet spot is a dozen dental offices in one market for that one layer of specialists, and they just don't see the value added of the second layer of management, especially one if it's taken 15%. Do you agree with that, or what?
It depends what you're looking for. That second layer of management needs to deliver that 15% in some way to you, correct? You're either going to get it in your revenue or you're going to get it off your costs, right? Off the COGS. But at some level, that second layer of management needs to deliver what they're promising. Because then, of course, you're right. Where is that second layer of management getting us? I really do think the most efficient way is to have regional management.
Which is just one layer management.
Which is one layer management. I really think that's a very efficient model.
And do you agree with me that the second layer of management is...
It could be beneficial. It just depends on what is everybody's exit strategy. It just depends. What do you want? Maybe a dentist who's in his late 50s wants to practice 2, 3, 4, 5 years and wants to have this exit strategy where he does have equity ownership in a bigger pie, where when he sells out, he doesn't have to rely on his SEP IRAs and 401k plans. I mean, he actually has equity ownership in a bigger layer of management. It just depends what the structure is. There's so many different structures out there, and there's so many different management styles out there. It really has to be a personal and professional preference.
I want to go. You said your cost, or you said COGS, cost of goods and services sold.
Right.
So basically, you look at the statistics, and in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, everybody had 50% overhead.
Right.
And it was a margin-driven business because when they started dental insurance, you would take your costs, you'd add a profit, you'd arrive at your fee, you'd submit it to the insurance companies, and they would just pay a percent, 100% of clean exam and x-rays,
Correct.
80% of fillings, crowns, half on crowns and dentures. And now it's moved to instead of cost plus profit equals price, now it's all turned to PPOs, where they say, here's the fee.
Right.
You subtract your profit, you arrive at a budget. At the same time, we're looking at the national data where in 2005, a decade ago, average dentists in America netted $225. And then for a decade, every year it slid $4,500, so that a decade later, it's down $45,000 to $175,000. Yes. So there's so many variables in this perfect...
And that trend is not going to end. The trend is downward. There's more competition. There's more of us graduating dental schools, and there are more of us practicing later and later. So the trend is not going to end. So we need to work with what we have. We can't fight it. We got to work within the system and make it profitable. Correct.
So how do you compete in a storm where income's going down? Yeah. They're opening up dental schools every year. We've gone from indemnity to PPO.
Consolidate. When you consolidate, you get power in numbers. You get PPO negotiation rights. You can negotiate things. All of our costs get negotiated. Our fees get negotiated up. Our costs get negotiated down. Our supplies, our lab, we can outsource a lot of the staffing costs. We can centralize a lot of the billing costs, a lot of the paperwork, a lot of the back-end costs. It's interesting you mentioned the 50s and 60s. Back then, dentistry was a local
I was
business.
Alive, you weren't. So take this with a grain of salt. I was there. You weren't born. But continue.
Well, thank you. That makes me feel good. Right, a week before my birthday. In the 50s and 60s, dentistry was a local business. It was, my wife is at the front desk and I'm the dentist and we see our community, and it was a local business and everybody knew everybody, and your wife interacted with everybody. She wasn't bogged down. Now the girls are bogged down with insurance paperwork, billing and collections, and making sure we get the right breakdown and balance billing the patients after the insurance underpayments came through. And that is all the processes that need to be leaned out. That is where the power of numbers comes in. So that's what I said when I said previously that dentistry is going to be price-driven, not by the price of your goods, because we can even price it higher when we negotiate the PPOs, but price of your COGS, your cost structure.
Did you have the local? I know there's a local PPO consultant in Chandler. Did you use her to?
No,
negotiate?
we actually have a company that we work with. We're very happy with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you
want to shout out to that company? Give them a lead.
Sure. It's Everest.
Everest. Is that out of Utah?
It is.
Out of Utah. What's his name? I've met him. I've had lunch with him.
I have it on my email.
Big fat bald guy,
yes,
right?
Yes,
right? I thought he looked like me.
Nice guy. And his company has grown. He's almost tripled his business in the last few years. He's done a great job. So we work with them for our fee schedule negotiations. There's so many resources out there for us to bring our costs down, bring our fees up. We have 5 offices. We have purchasing power. We have the Phoenix market, and our offices all are within 5 to 7 miles of each other. So when we go to the negotiation table, people listen to us.
Within 5 to 7 miles?
We have 5 of them.
5. So what made you that dense as opposed to having one in Phoenix, one in Scottsdale, Peoria, Glendale?
That's a good question.
You're the first guest that ever said I had a good question.
That is.
So I got to hear this. I got to hear this answer.
You right
I
now.
have a good question. Yeah, Ryan, write that question down. Give it to me. Sneak it to me again someday.
It's just the management is much simpler. It's easier to manage the 5 offices when they're within a vicinity. It's easier to share team members. It's easier to share ideas and thoughts. And when we have our management structural meetings, it's just easier to have a centralized location. So that is going to be our model going forward. We will have clusters of 4 to 5 in regions.
And I lived through that nightmare. So my dad started with a Sonic Drive-In in Wichita, and he ended up putting 5 in Wichita. And for some harebrained reason, he put 4 more in Childress, Texas, Kearney, Nebraska, Abilene, Kansas, and Louisville, Kentucky. And everybody's like, what?
Yeah.
And the you could run 5 in Wichita so efficiently, but those 4 other ones that he was focused on some demographic void, in Childress, and it was completely insane.
Yeah, they could have been platform for other ones.
It was his second worst idea. Having me was his worst idea.
I went to high school in Wichita.
Really?
I graduated
Where?
from Wichita East High School.
Wow, East High. That was where my best friend David Hornbrick went, and that was my first wrestling tournament I ever did was in East High. No, my first medal.
Nice.
And East High.
I never wrestled there.
And a famous movie star came out of there. The guy on what was that, Miami Vice?
Well, I wouldn't know.
Oh, that was a big show in the 80s, Miami Vice. It was a blonde guy and a brunette guy, undercover cocaine agents. I forgot his name, but he was from East High.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But
and one of the greatest running backs ever in the NFL.
Yeah.
And
it was a fun place to grow up, Wichita.
Is that right? And what years? I
went to middle school and high school there. So junior high and high school. I went to East High, and I don't remember.
And then how'd you get from Wichita to Phoenix?
Well, I went from Wichita to University of Michigan. I got a scholarship there and University of Arizona. And so I called my father up. I'm like, hey, Dad. He's in Iran. I'm like, Dad, where do you think I should go? He's like, oh, you have to go to the University of Michigan. They have such a good program. So that's how I ended up in Michigan.
And then how did you end up out here?
I wanted to move back. So we came here originally. I lived here a couple of years. So I always liked the environment. I like the city. I like the potential. I like the people. And it's a nice place to live.
And why did you not go back to Wichita?
You even giggle when you say that.
Oh my God!
I actually have lots of cousins in Wichita.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we can't talk about Wichita.
The funniest thing ever is we were flying. We always going back every Christmas, and I was flying the 4 boys back. And Eric was he was like only 5, and we land in Wichita. We left Phoenix, and it's palm trees and all everything. We land in Wichita, and it's overcast, freezing, drizzle, and we're driving home, and Eric yells out real loud to me, "Dad, why would people live here?" And I thought, oh my God, he's 5. But the funniest story, which I got,
it's actually a beautiful city.
We when Eric was 1, we went back home for Christmas, and he kept saying he wanted to go outside, and it was snow and drizzle and all that. And he's in Arizona, he'd only worn a diaper his entire year, and finally I just said, he doesn't get it. I'll just let him out. So I opened the door, and he ran outside, and he stood there, just free. Turned back in. He goes, he came back in. He goes, "Daddy, outside broken."
Yeah.
I thought,
I love that.
That was so cute. What when you ask dentists, what is your problem? They say, I felt like my dental office model came back from the days of indemnity insurance. Mm-hmm. Every year, the earth goes around the sun. My staff all want $1 more raise. Mm-hmm. Their overhead, is creeped up from 50% back in the day to now the national average is 65%. It looks like it's headed to 66. A lot of dentists just say, the PPO fees are the same every year. I have inflation. Every year my staff gets a raise, and they just feel like they're drowning in overhead.
I agree with that. I mean, I started off by saying, in the 50s, dentistry was a local business. It's still a local business. People still go to their neighborhood dentist, more or less. They just choose them differently. They look online for reviews. They ask their friends, but it's still a local business. Just the process of running the office has changed so much. We've gone through such an evolution. It went from just a fee-for-service. My wife gives every patient 100% every time they walk in the door. She knows everyone. We know their families. To my front desk now has to bill insurance companies, and we don't understand insurance, and we have to become computerized, and let's get digital x-rays, to modern dentistry where everything is computerized, everything is transparent, everything is online, and it's very hectic. So the girls my team members feel overwhelmed. And there's a lot going on. We expect a lot of these girls, right? So when Jennifer walks in the door, she wants to see a happy office. But poor Nicole is on the phone verifying insurance. The other one is on the phone taking a new patient call. The other one is running around the office trying to look at flow. It's difficult. And patients see that. I want to talk about something that's really interesting. I came across this little equation from it's part of operations management of these big corporations. The Fortune 500s use this, and it talks about service value. What is service value, and how is it determined? And it's interesting because when you look at us, we think, well, it's kind of results driven, right? What does the patient really want? Well, they want to come in and have a nice experience, and they want to be happy, and they want to leave without pain, and they want to come without pain. But is that all? Is that all they're looking for? And as a matter of fact, it isn't. So it's interesting. I ran across this equation, and I think it's very applicable to our industry. Service value is results, which is what we talked about, right? The patient comes in and my tooth hurts, and doc, you fixed it and you're my hero, right? That's results. Plus the service delivery quality. And that's going to be interesting because it consists of 5 factors. What kind of quality of service are we delivering to these people? That in opposition to the price, right? That's always a major factor. And the commitment, the customer burden. So how much is it costing the customer, financially and emotionally, to be sitting in your chair? So that's the yin and the yang of the service quality. So let me go over the service delivery quality. It talks about, number 1 is reliability. How reliable are we? So it's not necessarily reliability, I show up at your door and you're open, but how reliable is the interaction between me and Nicole, the team member, the concierge? Do I walk in one day and she's on the phone and she nods at me? Do I walk in one day and she's up and smiles at me? Do I walk in one day and she's had a rough morning? That makes an impact on the patient. The reliability factor. If she walks in every day and Nicole is grumpy, that's almost better because we know Nicole is the grumpy one and Jennifer is the smiley one. But when we have this, which is what dental offices are, right? One day we have a patient screaming, one day we have a child screaming, one day something happens. It happens. Again, I've been practicing full-time for 15 years. Things happen. And it affects the customer's perception of the quality. So that's the first step, is reliability. Number 2 is responsiveness. How responsive are we to them and to their needs? How attentive are we to their needs? What is it that they really need? Do we really have empathy? That's the third factor. Do we really know what they need? Do we really understand what they need? It's the assurance. Do they trust what we're saying? Do they trust in our empathy towards them? Do they have trust emotionally and physically to each member of the team? And then the last example are the tangibles. Then we work a lot on the tangibles, right? We want to make sure our operatories are nice, and we upgrade to computers, and we upgrade to digital radiography. But that's just one of the 5 of the half, right? Because the other half is the results. So when we're giving the customer results that they're looking for, by bringing them back and helping fix their tooth and them leaving. The best case scenario is Mrs. Jones comes to you and she needs a filling done. She has no pain, right? Fillings they really don't have any sensitivity or pain. The best thing that can happen is Mrs. Jones leaves your office and she still has no pain, right? We do a filling and she doesn't feel it at all. She doesn't see it at all and nothing ever happened. That's as great as it gets. That's only a quarter of the equation. That's your results. Then hygienists, again, they see the hygienist. They have no pain. They go into the hygiene. The best thing that can happen is they leave with no pain and they leave with shinier teeth. But that may not be the case, right? So they might go into hygiene and, we might cut their lip a little bit or the gingiva is a little bit irritated and we scale a bit too hard and she leaves with pain. So her score for your results are 70, 75, satisfaction rate. Well, she did a great job. My teeth are clean, but it just hurted a little. I'm going to give you 75. What is that, a C? That's what we got in school to be in dental school? We didn't get C's, right? We got A's. So that's a C. Okay, and then let's go to the service quality. 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5. We deliver on most of them. Like the tangibles, got it. I have beautiful radiography. My office is super clean. There's a dust bunny in the corner, but she didn't notice that. And I had the door open. There was a fly in the office, but I caught that. Tangibles, we got that covered. What about the rest of them? So if we get, 3 out of 5 on the service quality, 60% score there. And then we go to the yang, right? The price and the customer burden. How much is this costing me? Oh, the insurance only pays half of it. Oh, I have deductibles and I have this and okay. And then time is money, right? I took a lot of time off from work to be here. So that's deep. This is modern day dentistry. This is our customer base. And the reason I say they're our customers is because they're not our patients until that new patient, that new customer sits in your chair, accepts your treatment plan, leaves the office, comes back to your office, gets the work done, then they become a patient. They just become a patient. They don't necessarily become a loyal patient. And that goes back to service, quality score, right? How did you deliver on all those 4 aspects? Did I give them 75 and a 60 and the price? Well, they leave at, the best case scenario, 70% satisfied, 75% satisfied. That's a loyalty score, and it's actually a score. Let me find who did this. It's called Service Profit Chain by Heskett. Very interesting. And the customers give you a score. A score of 75% satisfied is a 30% loyalty score. 30%. Isn't that crazy?
That is amazing. You should. Will you post that on Dental Town?
I will. Yeah. It's just interesting. You go out.
That paper and
yeah, and it's interesting. You go out and you look at the world, right? I was in an international plan, and you look at the world and you look at companies and you look at these Fortune 500 companies, and then you look at your own practice and you say, this is why the group practices are going to dominate us, because they know this. This is new to us, right? We're private practitioners. We've lived in our bubble, but they know this.
And you know the fastest way to pop that bubble of that 50, 60, 70-year-old dentist who's practiced 30, 40, 50 years in a town of 10,000 is, why does he ever stop and think, why does he need new patients? I mean, if a hygienist worked 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, she works 2,000 hours. So she could service 1,000 people twice a year. Mm-hmm. So if this office has been getting 25 new patients a month, every 3 years they would have added another hygienist. And here's this doctor who's been practicing 30, 40 years in the same town that hasn't changed population, and they still need new patients. And then you go to the other end. You just go up to any 65-year-old person you meet in Americans, just sit down with them and say, tell me, how many dentists have you gone to? Just someone who's been born, raised, and lived their whole life in this city. And they'll it's a dozen.
It is.
So nobody.
And in bigger cities, it's more. So it goes back to the loyalty factor, right?
So nobody. I mean, do you know any dentists who do not take any more new patients?
None. Not in this market. Not anymore.
Yeah. So when no dentists, when you don't know of a single dentist who doesn't take a new patient, it's the turnover with the patients is extremely high.
It is. The back door is open, right?
Wide open. It's actually about almost as wide open as the front door.
No, I agree with that. And it's the transparency that we live in, right? Everything is transparent. So now we expect our girls to deliver 100%, right? We want to give them that service quality at 100%. But how are the girls going to do this? They have to check insurances, they have to verify insurances, they have to make sure it's correct into the computer, they have to enter it in there, answer new patient calls. How are they able to do this? It's not consistent. That is the key. It's the consistency. So what is the difference between a private practitioner and a group practice? Is because the difference is the centralization of these back-end things, the non-patient interactive things that creates consistency for the patient interactions, the touch points that the patients see and feel, right? The service quality becomes more consistent. Because right now, Susie doesn't have to verify insurances because we had a walk-in. The back end is done. It's already entered in the computer. All she needs to do is attend to the patient in front of her, attend to the person checking in, attend to the person checking out, attend to the person on the phone, if that's what needs to be.
I see, there's 460 dental service organizations on the last list I saw. Some of them are really good. I think Heartland and Pacific Dental are, everybody agrees, are the cream of the crop. But some of these dental service organizations, their average dentist doesn't even stay for 1 year. And I see some of the dental offices, some of the dental offices, that you go in there and half the team's been in there, 7 to 15 years. And some offices, it's just turnover. So how can you have a reliable service if every time this patient comes to your office, it's a different hygienist,
right?
It's a different receptionist.
That is difficult. And in this community and in the generation, it's a generational thing again. We have a younger generation, and it is okay for them to switch offices every 2 years. It's not just in our industry. So that was almost refreshing for me to hear.
What other industries are you hearing?
We were in, where was this? Was it Singapore? No, I think it was in Dubai. And one of the big pharmaceutical companies was talking, and he said, our turnover rate is 30% every year. And it's
for the pharmaceuticals employees?
Yeah, for the employees, the sales employees, the people on the front line, 30% every year. And we said, how do you think we can prevent that? What do you think we can do to stop something like that? And he said, I just think it's a generational thing, because they come in to learn a particular skill, and then somebody else offers them more money, more time off, whatever their personal needs are, and they move on. And that has become the norm for us.
Yeah, growing up in Kansas, people worked at Boeing for life.
No, it's true.
All these lifeline. Now it's just, you just don't ever see that. I just had a dental assistant. I was in tears. I had a dental assistant 15 years, and her husband just got transferred to California. And she's gone. Yeah. And it's just like, oh my God, she was born in this town. I thought she would die here.
Yeah.
And so it's last I read on Phoenix is that 10% of the homes flip every year.
Yeah, that's a high number.
10% turnover per year.
Yeah. And 50% divorce rate, right? So what happens with our
let's talk about the divorce rate. I've read that if you're a doctor, a PhD, a DDS, an MD, a JD lawyer, and you marry your same postgraduate degree, that it's the lowest divorce rate in the United States. It's 9%.
Interesting.
And so a 50% divorce rate, that just doesn't happen when a dentist marries a dentist, a lawyer, an MD, an MD. You married a DDS.
I did.
Correct?
Yeah.
So you're a DDS, married to a DDS. I just think that is such a huge advantage I see with the women dentists is that, if you marry a stay-home mom who married a rich dentist, lawyer, physician, and spends $10,000 a month, $120,000 a year for 40 years, that's $5 million out the door. Yeah. If you marry a woman dentist who makes $10,000 a month for $40,000, that's a $5 million bring home the bacon. That's a $10 million spread between, I see 30% of the women dentists marrying a male dentist in the room, and I see the male dentists, the other 70% going and marrying the prettiest girl they can find. Right. In your case, your husband was able to find both. He found the prettiest girl he could find, and it does. But I mean, but talk about that. What's it like? What's it like leaving your dental office and coming home and living with the dentist?
Yeah.
I mean, did you have a rule that says in this house we do not talk root canals, or how does that happen? And then also, do you agree that you have a huge advantage marrying another same professional making $10,000 a month? And what would you say to that guy who's completely infatuated with the girl at the Waffle House, who's going to buy Gucci purses, and destroy $5 million in capital over his entire career?
Funny. That's an interesting.
Funny. It's not funny. They're crying when they're listening to this right now. Right now, I just turned half the podcast listeners. They're now crying and blowing their nose.
Well, my brother is a dentist and he's single, and he's kind of gone through that whole gamut of, do I want to marry the prettiest girl in town, or why not marry the prettiest girl who's a professional, and where is the midway point? I kind of want to address I think it's interesting because I want to address the financial part. I mean, that is a part, correct? Like, he goes to work and he works hard, and being a dentist is difficult. It's a difficult profession. It's
exhausting.
It's exhausting physically and mentally and emotionally. It's tiring. We're on stage all the time. And for people who are not comfortable who are not the extrovert, who are not the stage collectors like me, I'm not an extrovert. I feel like when I'm at work, I'm on stage and I can do it. I'm a good performer, but it's exhausting for me. So I take my time out. After work, I hit the gym every day, and that's my time to be all by myself with my music to decompress. And my husband understands that. So I think that's the key. When you marry someone who's within your own profession, it's easy and it's difficult at the same time. It could be a little bit competitive because, we're both professionals and I'm pretty tough. And it could be very nice because he understands where I'm coming from. When I tell him I'm exhausted, I need to go to the gym every day, he understands that. He's all for it. When he feels the same, whichever way he needs, I understand that. And I think the reason we were able to have such a stable, happy, quiet, comfortable marriage is because of our understanding of each other's emotional needs. And I think that's the missing piece when one person works as a professional all day, throughout the day, and one person doesn't. It's not that the person at the Waffle House is any less or any more because she spends my money. It's because she truly internally might not understand my day-to-day, my hour-to-hour, what I go through. And I do, right? And he does, because we do the same thing. So now let's say I married an attorney or I married a physician. I don't think that would be any different because I would understand their level of stress and pressure. So again, it doesn't have to be a dentist marrying a dentist. It could be a professional at the hospital, one of the hospital administrators marrying one of the physicians. I think it's about the woman having a serious profession where she has a lot of responsibilities and she has to answer to a lot of people and she has to be on stage all day for her to really understand how the guy feels when he's on stage all day and he has a lot of responsibilities.
To me, it's just completely insane. I mean, this just happens all the time. Like, we'll be at dinner and there'll be 6 or 7 couple dentists or whatever, and some dentist is telling you he's so stressed and he's so exhausted, and the PPOs and the overhead and this and that, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, his wife says, "Oh my God, have you seen the new 2016 Range Rover? Oh my God, I want that so bad." And you're just looking at her like, are you from a different planet?
Right.
And are you seeing buy a $5,000 Gucci purse? Like, do you know how hard you have to work in a dental office to take home $5,000? Right. Not only after the overhead, after tax. I mean, the tax rate on it was 38% for after-tax dollars. If your overhead was 2/3, it was. I mean, it's just crazy.
But then there's these. And then there's for her to feel. She feels, because I'm also a woman, right? So she feels that, well, I'm the one raising all the kids, so I'm at home, and you don't see this, but Joey at school yesterday threw sand in somebody's face, and I was in the principal's office, and so she has her own set of emotional difficulties she goes through, raising the kids and
I totally get all that. I think that's actually
just the different. It's just different.
It's just the money though. So you're at the school, you're at the principal's, you're doing homework. I get that's exhausting. But the money that they spend.
Right.
The money they spend. I mean, if you're married to a dentist, physician, or lawyer, it's just like this open checkbook. And you're looking at him, he's like, well, what did you do in your life that makes you think that you get a brand new $100,000 car, live in a mansion, and live like you're a rock star? I mean, did you have an album come out that I'm not aware of? Are you a rock star? I mean, okay, so you're a stay-home mom and you're exhausted. I get all that, but some of these dentists, their stay-home wives just they cook at home. Yeah. They drive 10-year-old cars. They know how to cook, and they live in a minimalistic lifestyle. Right. And it's a nourishing environment. Yes. But it seems like if you're married to a dentist, physician, or lawyer, it's just like you marry a dentist and now you're Joan Jett. Yeah. And you always
the entitlement is what is difficult. You know what? I told you I have a single brother. Yeah. And he has many single guy friends, and they're all professionals, physicians and dentists and attorneys, and it's a common concern because they're not that. Forever giving checkbook. This is not the money tree. And that's how they feel. So it becomes very tricky. Once you're in your prime and you're making the money and you feel proud of what you've accomplished, it's hard to find a partner that appreciates that and can add to that and not necessarily want to.
Well, I would say one more thing. A lot of it's their ego, marrying someone because they have a certain look or a shape or an object, whatever. But it's kind of funny because people who have money, they buy their cars in cash, and they're always 10 years old. Right. And these young dentists get out of school, they don't have any money. They're leasing a BMW, or it's on 5-year payments, and they just live so beyond their means. And that's why it's so confusing in this valley here, because so many dentists go to North Scottsdale because they think that's where all the money is. But you know where all the money is? All the money's in Chandler and Gilbert. I mean, I have old men come to me. I had an old man come to me the other day, and I mean, he looked like he was 70. He looked like his clothes were 10 years old. And I said, and we were talking about stock market. He goes, yeah, that market, he's dipped 20% in the last 3 months. He goes, I'm down $3 million. And here I'm thinking, okay, if 20% is $3 million, he's got 3, 6, 9, 12 left. And you'd have thought he was a homeless guy.
Right.
But the guy in North, if he owns a Cadillac, he paid it in cash and can have all on 4 in cash. But it seems like Scottsdale and Beverly Hills is fake it till you make it. They're all living beyond their means.
I think, again, it's a generational thing. It goes back to what are they looking for right now? They're not looking for, most of them are not looking for the house to buy and have a family. They're renting and they're enjoying and they're living a little bit in this community and then moving to another community and experiencing another community. It's an experience culture now. I want to experience new things. I want to experience new foods. I want to travel the world. The new dentists, the new generations are not necessarily looking. They're not looking to purchase your 70-year-old friend's practice. So it goes back to what is that 70-year-old dentist exit strategy? He had a beautiful practice, made $500,000 over the last 50 years. But what is he going to do with that? Who's he going to sell that to? Because these new dentists are so leveraged with debt, between their school debt, $300,000 of school debt, and their cars and their toys and their fun. They don't want to buy a practice. They're in no desire to buy a practice. They want to associate, they want to live their life, and they want to have a good life. And these are the people that are going to grow the group practices, because that's what a group practice is for, right? I
also see another thing they like about getting a job, especially the women dentists, is you go start a dental office, and then actually Persians are known for this, meeting their soulmate at a big wedding. You guys have the biggest flipping weddings I've ever been to. Remember?
They are fun.
You remember Sina Soraya?
Yes.
You remember him?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Some of these weddings in LA and Southern California. I mean, they're so you're a female dentist and you start your own practice and you're single. Then you go to some big Persian wedding in Southern California, and now you realize you're gonna have to move.
It's true.
And then I also see men doing this trick, where they come to this big city, they meet some female dentist, they get married, they start a practice, and then 14 seconds after she gets pregnant, she wants to go back home home and live right up the street from her
It's
mom
true.
and her 3 sisters.
It is true.
So it's like if I was a single dentist, and I don't, well, you could probably get away with it more as single dentist, you know, your wife all. But if I married a woman dentist and she was not born in that city and her mom and sisters were somewhere else, and she's telling you one thing until that baby comes out, and then it's a whole nother
It's
story.
true.
So basically, they like the job offers liquidity. The
It
job
is.
offers pick up and move.
It does. And
Do you agree on the Persian wedding thing, though?
I totally agree on the Persian
Oh
wedding.
yeah. What's the average Persian wedding cost?
I don't want to even guess. 50,
It's gotta-
70,000.
Yeah, it's
at
got to be.
least,
It's
maybe
got to be huge.
But I agree with that. That goes back to the beginning of our conversation when you said they feel like it's a men's profession. It's not necessarily that it's a men's profession, but things we choose to do in our life when we choose to have our children, when we choose to get married, when we choose to move, when we choose to, take time off, it affects us as professionals. Now, I actually think dentistry is one of the best professions for females to be in because you can always go back part-time. Many other professions, attorneys, they don't have that luxury. All the administrators in the hospitals, the MBAs and the marketing, they don't have that luxury. They have to work 60 hours to get ahead, 80 hours. We have the luxury of working 2 days and 3 days, making a great living and not having the hassle. Again, why would these women want to go own their own practice? Why wouldn't they join?
My friends that are MDs, they go do their office 8 to 5 all day long.
Yeah.
And then after work, they go do rounds in the hospitals and get home at 8 o'clock. And you can't run, bike, or swim with them on the weekends without them going on call. And I mean, dentist, it's a country club. I want to switch gears completely because this is a very, very common question. You got your MBA. Yeah. I got my MBA. Right. Probably one of the most asked questions on Dental Town is, what do you think about going back and getting your MBA? What would you say to some girl in dental school listening to you today and saying, my mom stayed home and made cookies and my dad worked on the assembly line at GM.
Right.
I don't know any business. What if she said to you, should I go back to school and get my MBA? What would you tell her?
It depends on your personal goals. It depends on what you want. I came out of dental school wanting my MBA. So for 15 years, I talked about getting my MBA. So at some point, my father said, you need to get your MBA. I'm really tired of you talking about it. You're making me crazy. So I got my MBA. But I've always wanted my MBA. I always saw myself where I am today. I always saw myself as a group practice owner. I always wanted to be an influential figure in women in dentistry, just in general in dentistry, for men, for women, for children, just in general. This is what I wanted. So I felt like for me to get here, I needed my MBA. It was just the rest of the story for me. I enjoy writing. I would like to do a lot more writing in my career.
Writing? What kind of writing? You mean a book, or are you talking about
in
articles?
Articles.
For dentistry?
For dentistry.
I know a guy in Phoenix that owns a magazine.
Yeah, I know.
Have you met Tom Giacobbe?
I haven't.
Yeah, Tom was he worked for me as an associate for 6 or 7 years, and he started his own practice. And he's been the editor of Dental Town, and that's his baby. It's not mine, he's amazing at it. He's in Chandler. You should go meet Tom or submit some.
Thank you.
And Tom's under the pressure too. I was lecturing in some dental school in New Jersey. This is about 5 years ago, and this little 5 foot tall, 100-pound Vietnamese dental student woman walks up to me, and she shows me the editorial directors, and it's all male, and she says, "Oh, your magazine's all males," and she flipped it at me. It hit my face. I'm like, holy moly. Man, I got on my cell phone. I called the president, Lori Zalowski. I said, I'm speechless. She's absolutely right. I never saw all those people as boys with wieners. I just saw them as dentists, and this guy's good at implants, and this guy's good in orthodontics, and I just saw their trade. I didn't see their gender. And I said,
it's funny,
so
Dentistry Today did that. So they came to me and I did a big, huge 3-page editorial spread, which is very humbling. I was very honored to be asked to do that because the deans of the dental schools do that. And he said, I'm going to ask you to do this because I need a woman's voice.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hope I'm more than just a woman's voice, but I do have a woman's
Well, not everything's in black and white. It's always 50 shades of gray, but it's a real force. And by the way, if you're listening out there, some dentists said to me, "I'd like to be on your show, but I write for Dentistry Today or I'm in this camp or that." I think that's crazy. It's fear and scarcity. I don't know a single dentist who reads a single magazine. I don't even know a single podcast listener that only listens to one podcast. I mean, even on the news, if you're at someone's house, they just scroll down the channels. They might stop at CNN.
Yeah.
And then when they get tired of that, they'll scroll down. Then they're at Fox News. So to sit there and think that this person only watches CNN and this person.
It's not even relevant because we're a cohesive team. We're a group of professionals. There's only 150,000 of us. And everyone is infiltrating us. Everybody is pulling us from one side or another in one way or another. And our best thing that we can do at this point is stick together. And when you talk about the MBA, it was my dream because I really feel like this is going to be the future. And I felt like I had to be able to speak that language. Business is a language all in its own. You learn terminology and you learn the culture. And that's what we never learned in dental school. And once you learn their culture, then you're able to cross into that without being fearful, without being angry, just comfortably.
I would say that with the last day of dental school was over, I walked out, literally got on my hands and knees, kissed the ground, and almost cried that hellhole was over. I mean, love the people, love my homies, and also that was the hardest I ever partied for 4 years. But the process and the mentality was more like a Marine Corps boot camp thing.
It was absolutely. It was
But
tough.
when MBA school is over, I remember driving home almost ready to cry for the opposite reason. I had hung out with 200 kids.
Yep.
Every Monday and Wednesday night from 6 to 10, year-round for 2 years, 3 trimesters. Every trimester was 2 courses, a class from 6 to 8, another one 8 to 10. So I hung out with these 200 people for 2 years, and a lot of our projects, we just leave at 10 o'clock, go straight to the bar, order drinks, do our homework. It was so fun. I was so sad when that was over.
Yeah, the camaraderie, the closeness. We have 36 in our class. It's a small group, and we've traveled 3 trips together, 3 10-day trips together. We spend every other weekend together because that's how our program works. And we're going to finish.
What trips? Where did you guys go?
We went to, I went to Dubai and Jordan.
Is it Dubai or Dubai?
Well, in English it's Dubai, I think.
But,
in Farsi we say Dubai, so it comes
Dubai.
out incorrectly.
Okay. All right.
I went to China and I went to the Singapore, Vietnam. And we can choose. I mean, some people went to South America, some people went to Russia, some people did Europe, Portugal, Morocco. It just depends what we chose. And the trips were so special. Not only was a special bonding experience for us, but it was more special because most of my cohorts are very highly educated people, PhDs and attorneys, and just very subspecialized, black belt in Six Sigma when there's, 10 of them in the world. Like, my cohort was incredible. And the learning experience from them was just as valuable as the learning experience from my school material.
At ASU, we had 3 trips too. One was to a bar in Scottsdale, one was to a ar in Tempe, and the other one was in Mesa.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with MBAs and drinking. I think it goes hand in hand.
Well, what it was is when I was in MBA school, the average person just walked out of undergrad. So they were all 20 at ASU. They were all 22 years old.
Right.
I mean, they all lived in dorms and apartments right there on campus. Yeah. I was the oldest guy in the class by about 108 years.
That's funny. This was an executive program, so we were all execs, which was nice. The quality, the high level.
But do you think earning the MBA will have a return on investment in your business career?
I'm not sure if it will have a direct return, but it will have an emotional return. It builds my confidence in terms of what I've done so far and what I can do. It almost makes my path very clear. And again, it takes that fear and the anger and the unknown away, and it makes it a very clear path. This makes sense. I came out of dental school in 2001. I had my son in 2002, and we opened our office in 2002, our first office in 2002. And from 2002, where I had my first son, and we opened our first office, this was in Michigan, to 2006, where I had my daughter, we had opened another office during that time. And I was working part-time in and out and juggling the kids and the practice. And I've lived that life of stress of having young children and opening practices and, growing and growing and growing, and then saying, was this the right choice? And maybe not, and selling some of them off and going back to having only one or two. I've lived that entire circle, and I wouldn't live it any other way. I think the experience I got from, first of all, opening my first practice right out of dental school to purchasing my last practice, which I just did last year, just those 15 years of experience were invaluable. The MBA, what it did for this is it made everything make sense. It made the process make sense to me. You do things because it's a gut feeling, it's a hunch, it's something you read or something you heard. But once you go through the process, you understand that, no, this is the process. There is a system. And you know what? There are 10 steps in the system, and I did 8 of them. That wasn't bad. When I interviewed to go into Thunderbird, Dale Davidson, who is one of the Thunderbird alums, the godfather of Thunderbird, interviewed me, and he goes, Maryam, you're a woman, and you have kids. How are you going to be able to handle your offices, your children, and Thunderbird? Thunderbird is a lot of work. And I go, Dale, I went through dental school. If I can survive dental school, I can survive anything. That was the worst experience of my life. It was boot camp to the extreme. And he goes, what do you think you're going to get out of this MBA? You've done so much in your career. What is this going to give you? I go, that's a good question, Dale. I'm not really sure. I'm expecting to find something, maybe it'll help me in my writing. Maybe it'll just give me more notoriety because I have the title. He goes, no, you know what it's going to give you? You have a lot of gaps. It's going to fill in your gaps. And once he said that to me, that's what I've been saying to everyone because it was the truth. I did so many things. I have a whole page of stuff I've done, but it was all with little bit of gaps here and there. And it just kind of made it
I look
solid.
at the MBA as the difference between my dental assistant, Jan, has been with me since day one. So we've both been there. We're coming up on 30 years. I went through dental school. She's been assisting me 30 years. I guarantee you she could do a root canal filling, crown. She could do any dental procedure on me. But at the end of the day, she's not really a dentist.
Right.
And there's so many people that own mom and pop businesses, whether it be a dairy farm, a wheat farm, a restaurant, a dry cleaner. And they've done business successfully for 10, 20, 30 years, but they're not an MBA. And so for me, it was so, I learned business from my father, and this filled in so many gaps for me. Yeah. Do you know Lewis Core?
I don't.
He's one of my best friends. He's a dentist in Glendale. He just graduated he graduates next week in May with his ASU MBA.
Nice.
When did you graduate from yours?
May.
Yeah. You know what?
We're going to be in the same commencement ceremony.
Well, no, he went to ASU.
Well, ASU bought Thunderbird, so Thunderbird is going to become an affiliate of ASU now. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I want you two to go to lunch. I would go too.
Come join us.
I would love it. Let's set that up. Lewis Core in Glendale. I think it's called Legacy Dental Group or whatever, but he's a big town. He's got like 6,000 posts, but nice. He wants to, I did something, when I got out in 94, I actually did the 30-day dental MBA. Right. I had that 30-day Personal Power by Tony Robbins in the garage, and the boys just loved it, and they were, they were just little kids, and they were born in 89, 89, 91, 93, 95, and I think that's about when that came out, that Personal Power. I think it was 94, and you would hear him 5 years old in the sandbox saying your attitude determines your altitude, and so I just kept playing it over and over.
That.
And Tony put so many thoughts in their head that was so great, and I thought, well, you know what, I'm gonna I had all my notes. I said I'm just gonna rant about business on the 30-day dental MBA. Probably one of the biggest things I ever did back then, and I put it on YouTube and iTunes for free. It's a separate deal, so if they want to go there. But I think you and Lewis, you individually, separately, whatever, you might want to do some writing on your MBA.
That would be an honor.
Yeah, because the whole game's changed. I mean, look at the difference when I got out. When I got out, you just sent your fee to the insurance; they paid. Yeah. Now the insurance sends you the fee. When I got out, everybody owned their own practice. Now 20% work for dental service organizations.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it could be a win-win for all. It just the structure has to be set up correctly. It could be a huge win for the dentist. Like we discussed, they're so in debt right now. They come out of dental school, they have so much debt, and forget the debt. I don't think they want that responsibility. Or maybe they just don't want it right now.
And they complain about the debt is so bad. But then the next thing you talk to them, they just bought a $750,000 house. And again, it's like, okay, you're a 24-year-old punk-ass kid.
Yeah.
You're a third of a million debt. You haven't done anything in your life to justify owning a go-kart.
It's true.
Why did you buy a $750,000 house? And they tell you because they didn't think they could afford the $1.5 million home. You know, and it's like, what? Where did you? Do you realize what a money pit that is? Do you realize how much stress in your life? You know, if you just would have had an apartment, a minimalistic lifestyle, you could have. You know, and what's weird is it seems like so much of the rest of the world has a better view. Like you'll meet so many dentists in Scandinavia, they don't even own a car.
Right.
They'll live 1 mile from work in a townhome, walk out and make bank as a dentist, walk to and from work so they don't even need to go to the gym.
But again,
and it's nothing but net for so many doctors around the world.
And I think
except
again
for Americans.
it goes back to how does the rest of the world like to live? The Scandinavians, they love their free time. They love their traveling. They love they love having a good time. They like to go hiking and they like to go biking and they want to travel all over Europe and backpack and lay on the beach. They don't want to be burdened. So I think that's going to change. I'm not sure if that $700,000 house is going to be sold to that new grad anymore. I think they're going to go and rent because they don't want that burden. They want to be free.
So you heard it from Maryam that her final thought is don't get married, you don't have kids, don't buy a big house.
Be free.
And just get a job with her and be free and live like a Scandinavian. It's but they do. I think they're very more well-rounded. Hey, our hour's up. It was an honor that you came by and we're on the show. I hope you and me have lunch with Louis Core. I hope you have lunch with Tom Giacobbe. Like I say, I'd like to get a lot of writing or some writings from you because these.
I would be honored.
You know, in the American Dental
pleasure.
Association, that they're not being shy about that. The last two presidents in a row were women.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's just not a random.
And it's not being a woman just to be a woman. You know, it's a woman with qualification.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. But I think the men don't see it. I hear this all the time. I'm trying to get together also, other groups. Like there's a lot of. I've been very open that my little brother is gay, and he was. I don't care what anybody says. He was born that way. I was there. I knew he was gay 10 years before he did. I'm 17 years older than him. But there's like a lot of gay dentists who are afraid. You know, they're in rural Texas and they're afraid someone's going to find out, and then they and I know so many amazing men in leadership positions in dentistry. Who are gay and they haven't told anybody.
Right.
And I'm trying to get a group just to the ones in Phoenix to do a group, podcast. But this is a real change in demographics. It really is a change in demographics.
I would love to be involved in that.
We need more women leaders. We need more gay dentists to come out of the closet. And then, in fact, if you're a gay dentist, email me, Howard at Dentaltown. I've already got 5 that are sitting on the fence that are thinking they might meet me at Dentaltown. And do that.
That would be fun.
But thank you for all that you do. I'm sure that no one has seen this is probably just the beginning of you.
Thank you.
I'm sure the next 10, 20 years, everyone will have heard of you. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you so much, Howard.